like I owe McNaughton an apology. Sorry, old chap. Actually, in fairness, I should probably say that's not really a bad textbook at all. It's certainly good for throwing around the classroom. It's not McNaughton, but it's not as bad as I suggested it was. It's very, very good in a number of areas. I just think it's a bit ropey on ecologism and feminism, but that just encourages you to go out and find other sources, which you can then compare and contrast. This will easily get you through your A-level. You'll need a new one when you get to university, but you're going to want to buy a new textbook anyway. So there we go. So anyway, we're back. We need to start again and look at different types of ecologism. So hello, everybody. Hello, political students who are studying the A-level course, be that AQA or indeed at Excel. Hello to Jason Isaacs. Let's get on with different types of ecologism. A lot of this stuff we've kind of covered in outline already, but it doesn't hurt to come back and look at things from a slightly different direction. So let's get on with it. And the first one we're going to look at is deep green. This is the idea that we need to look at ecocentric, or we need to develop an ecocentric way of thinking, which will allow us to put the environment at the center of our thinking rather than our individual species. We here are establishing biocentric equality and rejecting the sense of intrinsic value in human civilization, that there's a reason why we exist here. If we look at the timeline of the universe, and let's just stick with the planet, and we are here, and this is the beginning. So this is 4.5 billion years ago. We're about halfway through the Earth's life, in case you're interested. So that's 4.5 billion. This one here is, call that 2 million. Then we've got 1 million, and then we've got 500 million, and then that means that's 250 million. So that's give that 100 million, which means basically that bit there is 65 million years ago. And in case you're wondering, that is when we had the CT event, which was the cataclysmic arrival of an asteroid. The name, oh gosh, I know that it's got a name. How cool is that? So that hit 65 million years ago. And what that means is that our sort of brief bit of civilization is really just about the last 15 minutes, if we took that across the entire day. It also means, just in case you're curious, that we're closer in time to the last dinosaurs than the last dinosaurs are to the first dinosaurs. But anyway, that doesn't really matter. What we're saying there is that we're rejecting this sort of sense that we really must matter. If we look at it on this scale here, it's quite clear that we just don't matter at all. And when the sun expands in about another 4.5 billion years, as it will do, the sun will expand. Here we are. So we've got 1, 2, oh, don't do that. I'm getting carried away here. 1, 2, and 3 planets. The sun will expand all the way out there. It will engulf all of that. And once that happens, everything that we have done, assuming we're still on this planet, will be eradicated. And the universe will not even know. With the exception of 2 things, and that is Voyager 1 and Voyager 2. That left our solar system fairly recently, actually. But again, once again, I'm getting distracted. Can you imagine what it's like to be in one of my classes? It just goes all over the place. Anyway, deep green thinking says there is no intrinsic value in human civilization. We are a rounding error in the evolutionary scale of this planet, never mind the geological scale. And so, fundamentally, when humanity dies, as inevitably it will, the universe is just going to shrug and get on with things. Once we accept we are just really a rounding error in the grand scheme of things, then we're in a position to develop an environmental consciousness and look around us and realize that actually human wants, needs, and desires, they've only been around for 200,000 years at the best of times. And really they're not amounting to a hill of beans. So we reject anthropocentrism. If we reject anthropocentrism, then it follows that we're going to need new political systems, new economic systems, and new social structures that are going to guide us through. And we kind of touch on those when you look at your thinkers. So that's where your thinkers are going to come in. And those we cover at the end of this presentation. Or rather, those you can cover in your own time. You don't need me to do that for you. This is just a cut and paste job. Or that's just a cut and paste job anyway. So once our entire society at the minute, all of our thinking is predicated on anthropocentrism. That drives everything. If we reject anthropocentrism, then we need a whole new way of thinking, of organizing ourselves, of sorting ourselves out, and of allocating our scarce resources. Shallow green, on the other hand, says, well, no, we are here. There is some sort of merit in civilization and the human project, if you will, that there is something valuable in creation. Civilization. That civilization is of intrinsic value in that it creates good stuff, whether that's Shakespeare or Velasquez or Rembrandt or Tottenham. There is a value that society creates, and that is worth protecting, and it should endure. So we say that civilization has a merit in it. Civilization is worth nurturing and cultivating because we are doing something good with our time. However, we accept that growth is not limitless, and so we have to embrace weak sustainability. And at the same time, we should expand our moral compass, both along the temporal axis and the species axis, as we discussed in an earlier presentation. And where you decide to put your moral compass there will determine exactly how much you're prepared to give other species and future generations weight in your ethical system. So following from that, we have enlightened anthropocentrism. Yes, we still see some sort of intrinsic merit in the human project, but it needs to operate within the environment rather than against the environment. We have to try to reconcile the ends of the human with the well-being of the planet, both because we can, so we should, but also because the environmentalism is all about the interconnectedness of things. And if we keep growing, if we keep trying to seek economic growth, then we wind up basically hollowing out the earth beneath our feet. So there is a degree of self-interest at work here. It's not entirely altruistic. We recognize that we are part of an interconnected whole. We need to look after that whole, but we're not doing it because we necessarily value the whole itself, but rather because we see that our well-being depends on the health of that whole system. In order to achieve this, we're going to deploy technological meliorism. That means we're going to fix our way, we're going to invent our way out of environmental problems, and when that doesn't happen, then the government's going to have to step in and tell people to do stuff. Perhaps stuff that they weren't already going to do. And green capitalism is going to deliver environmental solutions, ideally. And here again, these three things here, this is all about Steven Pinker. Now, Pinker is not one of the thinkers cited in the book, which is a bit of a shame, because he's the best example I can come up with of a really articulate, if fundamentally wrong, shallow green ecologist. Steven Pinker, a wonderful linguist and on the philosophy of language, and he's very, very interesting indeed, but I'm not sure I necessarily agree with him when it comes to environmentalism. I'll link off to him in the footnotes, and I'll just make a note to myself, Pinker, there we go, and we'll come back to that later. So within the various different schools of ecologism, there are of course divisions and revisions, and here are some of them, and these are the ones that are cited in your textbook, so you should probably know. Now, most of these are deep green because we're looking at wholesale restructuring of ethical systems and social organizations and economic systems, but the environmental Buddhism of the type I think proposed by Schumacher might be argued as being a shallow green hypothesis, as we're doing the same but slightly more responsibly. I deal with him when we come on to the thinkers at the end, but in terms of shallow versus deep, here's just a few ideas. In terms of human nature, your enlightened anthropocentrism is set against ecocentrism. Is that a difference of emphasis or a fundamental schism? You should remember that these are the questions that the examiners are going to ask you. To what extent do ecologists agree on human nature? And is it a question of turning the dial up to 3 or 5, or is it the difference between your treble and your bass? I'll let you decide. In terms of society, we're looking at sustainable civilization on this hand, whereas here we're looking at re-evaluating the entire role of civilization on the other hand. Sorry about the bell. I don't think I'm going to get any children. No, I'm not. That's fine. Again, is this a difference of emphasis or is this a fundamental schism? You can read that, make your own decision. This is what they're going to ask you. The state, there we go, the same again. The economy. And that brings us to your important ecological thinkers. Now, I'm at 10 minutes here on this particular video. I'm not going to make any more videos on ecologism because there's only so much the internet deserves or indeed can take. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to present these. You can read them, cross-reference them with your various textbooks. You can decide whether they're shallow or deep. As long as you can bring some of these thinkers to substantiate your arguments, then you're going to be in good shape. Generally speaking, when it comes to the exam, you should be arguing from the school of ideology and the ideas that they've got, supporting that with the thinkers. Don't argue from the thinkers to the point. Argue from the point to the thinkers. God, I could really have explained that better. So, in other words, what I would suggest you look at is that you would say, okay, here is my ecologism, here is my deep, here is my shallow. All right, so the point is here. So this is what they think about this is what they think about this, and then you evaluate it over here, and then you link that. So this is the extent to which that agrees with that and that agrees with that. I really could have explained that better. I should have thought about that sooner. Sorry. If anyone wants some clarification, just drop me a line and I'd be happy to offer it. Anyway, so these are your various thinkers. Do please pause it and think about them. Decide for yourself whether they're shallow or deep green. Decide the extent to which they agree with one another and the extent to which their points are valid. And that is all. Again, I do hope this is helping. If it is, great. Tell your friends. If it's not, sorry about that. Let me know how I can make these better. This is what this is about. This is about helping you get through these exams. But do like and subscribe, and let me know if you have any requests for an online tutorial. Happy to offer those, and also happy to entertain requests for other presentations on different subjects. Just let me know. And cue the music, and bye. Am I still recording? Looks like it. Deep. To what extent does that agree with that? To what extent does that agree with that? Maybe that makes more sense. Bye.